Alright, so let's talk about Howler. Most people know that about 4 months ago there was a legendary close quarters weapon called Howler that was added to the game. What a lot of people don't know is that about a month later it got a silent buff. The only thing that they changed was they added the capacity for the weapon projectiles to pass through enemies, and that is mostly what this video is going to be about here. Now, this buff happened like 3 months ago, and I even recorded this footage about 3 months ago. So you might be wondering, like,
Wait, how come it's taken so long to upload this video?
well, I have no idea what's going on. I spent a very long time trying to find patterns. There are some very interesting things that happen with this weapon. But first, let's get into some rather basic stuff. Okay, so first and foremost, when you fire a shot at an enemy, it just keeps going through that enemy and continues to hit other enemies that are in the way, or even like Aegis domes in this case. After piercing an enemy, the shot does not lose any damage. There's no fall off or partial damage by piercing, so you'll deal full damage to everyone that it passes through, so that's good to know. Pretty obviously, you can't pierce walls or anything like that. It seems like you can only pierce a maximum of 3 enemies. It will hit the 4th, but it'll only apply the shock effect without actually damaging them. And also, even though the hit cone for the 6 and the 16, which is what I'm using here, is very different visually, the actual projectile size is the same for all variants. You cannot pierce through enemy mod shields. However, you can pierce through ally mod shields, or anything that they might have. You cannot pierce enemies when there is a shield blocking it. You can't pierce ability shields like Bastion, or any type of barrier shields. It's worth noting that the barrier shields, the ones that mechs place down, do operate differently than the ones that the mechs carry along with them, like Bastion and Ares. We'll get into that in a minute though. But now we get into the interesting stuff. You can fully pierce through an Aegis Dome or a Panther Barrier if an enemy or an ally is halfway inside of it. So by hitting them and piercing through them, you also pierce through the shield. Now this is where the barrier shields and the carryable shields start to differ, like I mentioned earlier. So here you can see the barrier shields, if there's an enemy in front of it and an enemy behind it, nothing happens. It's not going to go through the shield. For a carryable shield, though, it will pierce the shield. You can see this Ares, even though the shield is in the way, it goes through the first enemy and into the second. In this case, we can pierce all 3 mechs, the one in front, the Ares itself, and the enemy behind it, completely ignoring the Ares shield. This is not specific to Ares. It can be done with Sentinel and Bastion as well, but this kind of brings us to the reason that it took so long to upload. It's so inconsistent. I cannot figure out the pattern. Sometimes it pierces through the shield, sometimes it doesn't. I'm standing still firing multiple shots, and it will do completely different things. And it might look like from the footage that it alternates. It first pierces, then it hits the shield, then it pierces, then it hits the shield, but that's not actually what happens. These are just the best clips that I had, but there were plenty of cases where I hit the shield 3 times in a row, or I pierced the shield 3 times in a row, stuff like that. And again, without moving whatsoever. Like, I'm not moving at all, I'm just pressing, I'm just firing the weapon, and that's it. And I really wanted to find a pattern. I really wanted to find a specific thing that I could be like, hey, this is what makes it pierce and this is what makes it not pierce. But I couldn't find that thing, and I think this is probably the first time that I've ever done a test, and the results of the test were basically just, I have no idea what's going on. But yeah, I mean, if you guys have any idea, if you have Howler and you can test it yourself, go ahead. Please don't use this video footage as a reference point, because again, I have not shown even close to all of the footage that I have. I have about an hour of footage of me piercing through ability shields. You know, the clips that I showed are not at all indicative of the entire test process. But if you have Howler and you have the means to test it, feel free to test it and let me know if you find anything. I would be very interested. But either way, when it comes to Howler as a weapon, I mean, for one thing, I thought it was really bad at first, and I still kind of do. the low number of projectiles makes it really, really weak against all types of multi-layered mods, which just sucks. And of course, you could theoretically get all of this piercing to work, which, by the way, you can't pierce mods in the same way that you pierce ability shields. I didn't show the footage, but I did test that. But even if you could, it's super impractical. Like, the shield piercing thing is not really realistic of an actual battle. Getting even 2 enemies in a row is not super common. Getting 3 is even less. What I actually find the most interesting about this is something that I very quickly went over in the beginning of the video that you might have not really been paying attention to, and that is that you can pierce through allies. So if there's an ally with shields, it doesn't matter. The mod shields of an ally aren't going to stop you. You can shoot through them no matter what. And here's where that gets rather interesting, especially in the case of this new mech Salver that came out. Having a weak support type mech following behind a really strong, really large mech, you can keep supporting them, first off, and they can offer you fire protection by, you know, just getting in the way, absorbing all the damage, but you can shoot through them. Even though you're behind, you're healing them, it's not that you're useless. Using Howler allows you to actually continue to fire at the enemies, but without exposing yourself. And I find that very interesting. As well as the potential for, like, Aegis and Panther shield breaching, where one ally goes half in, half out of the shield while the other one has Howler and is firing inside of the shield. Even though they're on the outside, they can fire in so long as that ally is half in, half out. So the potential value is there, but again, the practical value is rather low. All of those situations are not particularly great. Even in the situation of Salver following a really strong ally, you can only heal them 3 times before you have a pretty long cooldown. So sticking that close can be very dangerous. Any type of radius weapon will probably get you. A surge will probably get you. But I do think it's very interesting. And yeah, I wanted to share this video, even though it's super old. Personally, I think they should have given this weapon shield pierce, just straight up. You know, even if it's not 100% shield pierce, it's like a sonic weapon, right? It's sound based. Like, how is it being stopped by energy shields and stuff? If a physical mech won't stop it, why is a shield stopping it? So that's just my thought. Last thing I wanted to mention, there are special branded packs on the Plarium Store. I did not have full freedom over creating these. It was basically I got to choose between different options that they had, but I chose the ones that looked the best. These first ones for the next month or so is going to be a trial phase, but after that I will get a small percentage of the revenue that comes from it, so that will be nice and it would help me out. Now, of course, let me be clear, if you're just looking to help me out, I very much appreciate it, but your money would go significantly further by becoming a channel member or by just donating directly. I would get a much larger percentage of that. So of course, only get either of these if it is something that you want. I do want to point out this one though. This is the cheaper one, $5. You get some credits, some A-coins, not much, but 6 Eclipse blueprints. So that's 6 guaranteed legendary blueprints for a thing. If you need blueprints for Eclipse, this is a great way to get them. $5 for 6 blueprints is fantastic. If you were to spend A-coins to get these blueprints, it would take about $12 worth of A-coins to buy 6 blueprints. So you can get a little bit of credits, a little bit of A-coins, a crate, as well as 6 for like a third of the price that you'd normally get it at. So yeah, that's nice. And even if you can't get either of these, I would recommend going to the Plarium Store anyway. There are some free things to claim. Otherwise, yeah, that will be it for me. Appreciate y'all. Take care.